Would you still raise the knife, if the animal crying in front of you wasn't an animal at all? What if it was human? This is a story where love turns into jealousy, where magic is learned in silence, and mercy appears only for a single moment. A moment that decides whether a child lives, or is lost forever. This is not a tale about monsters. It is a tale about people, and the choices they make when the truth is hidden. Tonight, you will hear a forgotten story from 1001 Nights, a story told in the presence of a demon, where survival depends on how the story ends. The old man began his tale. "O Prince of Demons, listen closely. This gazelle is my cousin's daughter, and she has been my companion for 30 years. In all that time, she remained childless, and so I took a maidservant, who bore me a son. The boy grew strong and bright, and when he reached the age of 15, I was called away on a long journey to another city for the purposes of trade and business, but my cousin's daughter, this very gazelle, had learned sorcery in her youth from a wise and cunning old witch. She harbored a secret power that few knew, and with it, she transformed my maidservant and my son into a cow and a calf, leaving them in the care of the shepherd. When I returned from my travels, eager to see my family, I inquired about my son and the maidservant. The shepherd told me, in solemn words, that the maidservant had died and the boy had fled. My heart sank, and tears filled my eyes. I spent the entire year in grief and sorrow, carrying this heavy burden in my chest, until the festival of Eid al-Adha arrived. On that day, I sent to the shepherd and requested a fat cow, intending to sacrifice it as part of the festival. The shepherd brought a large, fine cow, but to my astonishment, it was my maidservant. I felt a pang of sorrow and disbelief. Rolling up my sleeves and tucking my robe securely around my waist, I took up a knife, prepared to carry out the sacrifice. The cow moaned and wailed as if it knew the truth, and I could not bring myself to harm her. My heart melted with compassion, and I spared her. I told the shepherd that he must perform the act, but when I saw the remains afterward, a bitter regret settled upon me. Yet, this regret could not undo what had been done. I then asked the shepherd to bring me a fat calf. The shepherd obeyed, and to my amazement, the calf that was brought before me was my son. The moment he saw me, he broke free of his bonds, tumbled onto the ground, and cried out with heart-wrenching sorrow. I felt mercy for him, and told the shepherd to release him, instructing him to bring another cow instead. At this point, Scheherazade paused, her eyes glimmering in the candlelight, and Dunyazad whispered, "Sister, what a marvelous story you tell." Scheherazade smiled faintly and replied, "If the king spares my life tonight, I shall recount an even more wondrous tale tomorrow." The king, captivated by her words, decided to postpone her execution, saying to himself, "I shall not kill her tonight, lest I miss the rest of this story." When morning arrived, the king attended the royal council, remaining engrossed in matters of state until late in the day. The vizier, who had been anxiously awaiting news of the princess's execution, heard nothing and was struck with astonishment. At last, the king left the council and went to the harem, where he sat with the princess, listening intently to her narrative. On the second night, the story continued. When they retired to the bedchamber, the princess of the vizier shared an intimate moment with the king. Afterwards, she descended from the bed and seated herself at its foot. Dunyazad urged, "Sister, continue the story of the merchant and the demon." Scheherazade said, "If the king grants permission, I shall continue." The king nodded, granting her leave. Scheherazade continued, "O fortunate king, when the calf cried out and pressed its face to the earth, I was moved with great compassion and told the shepherd to release it. The gazelle, my cousin's daughter, stood before me, her eyes sharp and focused, observing my every move. She insisted that the calf be killed, claiming it was a sacrificial animal, yet I could not bring myself to slay him and handed the calf to the shepherd, who took it away. The next day, the shepherd arrived with news. There is a girl, who in her childhood, studied sorcery under an old witch. When I brought the calf to the house, she covered her face and wept bitterly, then she laughed. A sudden, strange laughter, and said, "Father, why do you bring a stranger man to the house?" I asked her, "Which man, and why these tears and laughter?" She replied, "This calf is the son of a merchant, transformed along with his mother into animals by magic. That is why I laughed." Yet I wept, for his mother was beheaded by her own father. Upon hearing this, I rushed from the house, my heart overflowing with joy, not knowing where my feet carried me, until I reached the shepherd's home. The shepherd's daughter greeted me warmly, kissed my hand, and stepped aside. Then the calf approached, rolling on the ground, pressing its face to the earth. I asked the shepherd's daughter, "Is all that you have told me about this calf true?" She replied, "Yes, this is indeed your child." I asked, "If you can release him from this torment, I shall grant you enough wealth that you will never want for anything." She smiled, replying that she had no need for wealth, but made a request, that if she lifted the magic from the calf, I allow her to cast a spell upon the one who had enchanted him, for otherwise, she could not be safe. That I agreed wholeheartedly, giving her my full consent. She prepared a vessel of water, recited an incantation, and poured it over the calf. Instantly, the calf transformed back into a human. Overcome with emotion, I embraced him, kissed his eyes, and married the shepherd's daughter. She, too, had enchanted my cousin into a gazelle, this very gazelle, and I carry her with me wherever I go, as a constant companion and a living reminder of these wondrous events. At this moment, I saw the merchant at the same place and listened to his tale. I stood silently, observing the unfolding of his deeds, marveling at the intertwining of fate, magic, and human courage. O Prince of Demons, this, indeed, is the story of me and this gazelle.